Our panel is called Managing the Beast, Dealing with Technology. And before I bring them up, here's a video to help set up our conversation. Have a look.
These days, screen time seems to be all the time. Non-stop stimulation in an infinite virtual playground.
Everything has been kind of transformed to this 2D world. Our brains on screens, it's an addiction.
The most susceptible among us, kids. 11-year-old Ayan Mukherjee got his first computer when he began remote learning last spring.
I mean, it was very exciting because I usually had to share devices with people in my family.
But he says in just a matter of days, things were getting out of hand.
I started with a couple of videos, then I started watching more and more. I watched every free moment I had, and day and night.
And it turns out our brains are wired to keep watching. Binging activates the reward center found in the midbrain, where dopamine is released and sent to our nucleus accumbens in the basal ganglia. It's a constant battle between immediate pleasure and self-control, making us pretty exhausted. Dr. Heather Berlin, a neuroscientist and clinical psychologist, says it's taking a toll, particularly on kids.
Studies show that with children, the longer amount of time they spend on screens, the worse their social and emotional development.
According to the Mayo Clinic, excessive screen time in kids has been linked to loss of social skills, behavioral problems, less sleep or irregular sleep, obesity, and even violence.
The more alarming part about this is that many of these children are receiving their own personal devices now as early as 6 or 7 years old. When you take into consideration the most recent census in the United States that recorded over 21 million children in the United States under the age of 5, and you look at the research that says 85% of American parents have allowed these young children to go online weekly, and in many cases daily since infancy, it means that in the US alone, we have over 17 million children growing up endlessly connected to technology. So when we overlay this excessive use of technology at these critical developmental periods of children's developing brains, it begs the question, could we potentially be creating a new generation of addicts? In this image, you see a healthy brain. That nice, robust red area is our dopamine receptors. In contrast, the brain of a drug addict. The dopamine receptors in this scan are significantly reduced. An addict's brain is motivating them to do it again and again. But even natural rewards, like eating food, having sex, they produce the same neurochemical responses. The difference is with drugs, our brain is flooded with up to 10 times more dopamine, which leads the user to repeat that behavior again and again, and it leaves more natural rewards feeling inadequate in comparison. So let's look at what it is to be a technology addict. The scan that we're going to see is a technology addict who has spent routinely 8 hours online, posting to social networks, playing online games, or viewing pornography. You can tell that they've been impacted. And when we compare them next to the healthy brain, the damage, obvious. When we compare the technology addict to the drug addict, the parallel in the damage occurring, indisputable. We know now that the more time that children spend online, the more isolated and depressed they become. And the more time they spend viewing carefully curated, digitally altered social media posts, the more inadequate and depressed they feel.
We've had some breaking news in the last few moments, which is that we've had a verdict from the coroner in the case of the death of the teenager Molly Russell. We can go live now to our correspondent, Katie Spencer, who is at North London Coroner's Court. Katie.
Hello. Yes, the coroner has just finished giving his conclusions in this case. We know Since Molly died in 2017, her family have campaigned actively in response to what they discovered after her death, the amount of content that she'd been viewing in relation to self-harm and suicide, that they firmly believed that what she saw on social media contributed to her death. But the coroner in this case, Andrew Walker, he has been delivering his findings of fact and his conclusions in this case. And the conclusion he's come to is that we know Molly was suffering from a depressive illness. The sites that she was viewing were not safe. She had access to images and text relating to self-harm and suicide. And what he believes is the algorithms, and he heard in the last week from expert testimony saying that these algorithms certainly were feeding Molly, without her requesting it, very, very negative images of self-harm and suicide. And she was having these binge periods where she would be looking online at these images, and that was certainly having a real negative effect on her mental health. It was romanticising the idea of her taking her own life. Some of it was encouraging her to isolate herself away. What the coroner, Andrew Walker, said is there was no counterbalance of normality here, and he believes that that likely contributed to her death in a more than minimal way, is what he said in court. He said, bear in mind the fact that these sites essentially normalised her condition, what she was going through, this depressive state. It portrayed suicide, the condition, as something that she wasn't going to be able to recover from. And given that, the coroner has said that he doesn't feel that it is safe, actually, in this case, to record a verdict of suicide. Instead, he has said that she died as an act of self-harm while suffering from depression and the negative effects of online content and viewing that.
Of course, we can't keep our children from technology, or it would put them at a severe disadvantage in a global economy that requires them to be proficient with it. But I am also acutely aware from my education that something as simple as a smartphone can actually structurally alter my daughter's brain and potentially trigger a lifetime of addiction. The question for us moving forward is not whether we can figure out a way to have a balanced relationship with technology. It is how quickly we can get there, and what is that healthy, balanced relationship going to look like?
Well, to help us answer those questions, you have to save everything. No pressure, the two of you. But let me tell you about our panelists that we're lucky enough to have. Tasha is right beside me. Tasha Belix is a registered psychologist, author, specializing in youth and families for over 20 years. Danelle is a registered psychologist and author with over 20 years of experience with adolescents and their families. Can we welcome them to the stage? Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I'll pick on you first, Tasha. Let's talk about this dopamine effect. I know when I was a kid, they said, oh, TV is going to melt your brain. It's going to melt your brain. Is this just really the same thing? Or is there a dopamine effect, and is it affecting our young people's ability to interact in the regular world?
The reality is that things are supercharged with dopamine these days. So a TV is not nearly as stimulating as what you can access from an iPhone. So actually, people should be really worried about what we're not only doing to our brains, but how, I mean, the ripple effects of how it's affecting young people's development. And even probably lots of people in this audience would even appreciate how we can see how technology has eroded some of the traditions that the way families interact with each other.
Supper time or whatever suddenly is a different game or a different experience altogether.
Getting in a fight with, let's go out on a bike ride together.
That's exactly my life. How did you do that? And like, you're a real therapist, I can tell. Danelle, I'm going to go through some social media things and you can both jump in, but I'll pick on you first. TikTok. I want to talk about TikTok. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but apparently it's a thing. TikTok is huge. Do you really think that if we use it, when is it okay and when is it distracting us or keeping us from dealing with life?
Well, the first thing, with any new technology, like when I first learned about TikTok and Snapgram and InstaChat or whatever it may be, I didn't grow up with technology. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I was a teenager before this stuff happened, and I had to first understand what it was to see how it works. And I think that's really, really important, so that as parents, we're not totally naive or clueless with what our kids are looking at. But something with all social media, with all apps, I always think of what else could I be doing? Is it an escapism? Are we trying to numb our emotions? Are we trying to avoid difficult situations? And it does. And it's really important to see how it's impacting the emotional well-being and the emotional competency, because our kids are not understanding, what am I feeling? What do I need to do with those feelings? Because they're numbing. They are constantly hyperstimulated and overloaded with what's on these social media apps.
Is there a way to know what's okay and what's too much? How do you judge that? Why don't you jump in, Tasha, and then Danelle jump in. Like, you know, my son, they like YouTube Shorts. Is 5 minutes good? Do I set a timer up? Is half an hour good? What do I do?
It most definitely needs to be regulated. And I think that was really the mistake that happened when iPads and then iPhones came on the market. There wasn't any clear policy around how they should be used in moderation. Like if someone, a cell phone isn't like a pack of cigarettes, but if someone were undoing a pack of cigarettes, there would be a warning on there that, hey, this could be addicted. But iPhones and iPads, we unwrapped them out of boxes and gave them to young people, not realizing the potential detrimental impact that they could have. And so there are some guidelines from the Pediatric Association. So little munchkins, like before age 2, the recommendation is 0 time on a screen. That's not watching TV, that's not tapping at an iPad when you're waiting at a doctor's office, that's not giving your kid a phone when you're at Starbucks. And if you want to do a little social experiment, the next time you're going in to buy a coffee or you're out at the park, just take a look at new parents. I'm so glad my kids were young before it was even a possibility, but you'll see people pushing their baby down the road with like earbuds in, listening to a podcast, passing a little person a phone, because it's a quick fix, and it is so engaging, even for a baby, to be tapping on a phone instead of, talking with the people that are around them.
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to feel, right? I remember there was a comedian who said, instead of feeling feelings, I just ate. And he was a larger fella, and that was his joke. But this is similar, right? It's like instead of feeling lonely, instead of feeling scared or whatever it is, I'll just do this. We heard about Holly, this person in the video. If my daughter, who's now 9, if she says to me, I don't know, pick a future time when she goes, I want to look at Instagram, is that just a road to anorexia? Danelle?
A road to anorexia? Not necessarily, but it could be. And I know Tasha and I are going to have a lot of gray type suggestions, because all of these suggestions and tips or thoughts are going to be unique to your family, and some will work and some won't work. Because we're not anti-tech. Just so you know, we know it's not going anywhere, and tech has a lot of, and social media and apps like Instagram, there's a lot of positives to technology, and so we don't want to just say get rid of it because it's not going anywhere. But what was the question?
So then, what should is Tess going to be anorexic?
Yeah.
Do I have to say no, you cannot,
no.
or how do I do with that?
Yeah, you have to look at your child and you have to think, what is tech doing for my child? What is it taking away? What is something that Tess could be doing? What is she using it for? What is the purpose it's serving? So really mucking around in your child's emotional world is super, super important, because if they know what they're feeling, and we know the kids are numbing and distracting and escaping, again, if we know what they're feeling and we can have really attuned emotional connections with their kids, then they're less likely to suffer from anxiety and less likely to latch on to something like an eating disorder, which actually, some of these things soothe the brain. We know that throwing up actually marinates the entire body with things like the feel-good hormones. Cutting marinates the body with feel-good hormones. So we don't want our kids to seek out these feel-good hormones, these dopamine hits, these connections. When we get a like on Instagram, we get this hit of, oh my God, I'm popular, I fit in, I belong. We don't want them to have those false senses of, I'm okay. We want the attuned emotional connections to be the things that we do with our kids. And so we are always, Tasha and I, we speak the same language, Tasha and I, about the relationship with your child and making sure you're understanding what is going on in their emotional inner worlds, then they're less likely to have mental health concerns.
So here's our home,
Yep.
2 kids, and option one is they want to go and play on their computers or whatever it is, and then I say, hey kids, nah, we're gonna play cribbage tonight. There's not a hope in hell they're gonna pick cribbage, so
They won't pick cribbage.
No.
No, probably not.
So what do I do? How do I say, okay, we're gonna do a timer, and then we're gonna do, like, what do I do?
You know what, I think that it's actually easier sometimes if we have some guidelines, like rough guidelines to follow. So we know that having dedicated family time, it might be a certain time of the evening or what you do on Friday nights, so like, hey guys, this is games night. This is so boring. Like whatever, you get ready for the moans and groans. Like your role as a dad is not to always be, have eyes of adoration looking at you. That's not gonna happen. I don't know if you knew that. But it's not always gonna be like that. But,
This is, yes. Yeah.
But we know that there's so much that we learn about each other. We learn to negotiate things. We learn about relationships and conflict resolution when we're playing a game of Monopoly, a heated game of family Monopoly, like boards flying. And so there is a place for parents, I think, to really say, actually, no screen time. Like we're allowed to actually have some rules and have some firm limits on things. Even if people moan and groan and they feel bored initially, it invites a space where there can be spontaneous play. It invites a space for you to build those really precious family memories. And those are the pieces. It's a hard place as your kids get older to be the cool option away from a screen. But we have to create those spaces in our families' lives because we know on the other side of it, if we don't, we have kids in their bedrooms with doors closed, getting up to who knows what online. Not always bad stuff, but we miss the chance of being able to influence them. We miss the chance in being able to see emotions wash over their face so that we have a chance to validate what's going on or share, like just check in with them and see what's up.
They talked about this in the video. Danelle, talk a bit about porn. I know for me, when I was a kid, I had to go to my friend Dave's place, and his older brother had magazines under the bed. It was a whole, and his brother couldn't be there, so it was a whole thing. But now, and I was saying to you too that it's like an arms race of porn to see what, it just never stops. So that's concerning if you have my daughter is watching, I'm like, what do I do there?
Well, and I just got distracted by your cookies on your socks.
It's milk and cookies because they're comforting. Isn't that,
Yes.
see?
Yes,
Just for you. Yeah.
Oh, I should talk about ADHD a bit too, because I get distracted.
I'm with you.
But yeah, porn. Yes. So the thing with our kids are seeing it, right? Like I don't know exactly what the stat is, but they're saying that kids are seeing as early as age 10. Like on average, 10-year-olds are seeing porn. And porn back in my day were magazines behind the Max counter, right? Like, and we can't avoid the fact that kids are interested in sex and they're interested in what is this about and what, I know nothing about it. And so, and now porn is 90% on the web, right? Like it's not in a magazine, it's not in a book, it's not in a dirty whatever, right? Like it's
Video
on the web.
store.
Yeah, videos, exactly. I don't know about these video stores. I've never heard of them. But porn is there and our kids are seeing it. And so, and it's three-dimensional. Like and that's the thing with developing brains is they see these things that they shouldn't be seeing. It's this acceleration of childhood. They're seeing three-dimensional stuff and they don't know how to process it. And they don't know how to make sense of it. And 3D is more real in their brain than 2D. Right? It feels like, holy shit, oh, Peter, I'm so sorry, I just swore. again. But
it's brain and body though,
Yeah.
because watching pornography is kind of stimulating, right? So
Yeah.
you're gonna have a really normal, healthy physical reaction.
Yeah.
Most people would.
And we don't want the first conversation. So we find, okay, oh my God, little Bobby, he's 12. He just watched this stuff because I looked at the history and I saw he saw this stuff. We don't want the first conversation about sex to be when you caught them looking at porn, right? You should be having these conversations with your kids at age 9, 10, 11 about healthy relationships, about sexual relationships, about just make sure, be available so that if your kid accidentally comes across something that they can't make sense of or understand, that you can not shame them or blame them or get mad at them or consequence them. Yes, you might have to put some parental parameters on your computers, but it's also, you want your kids to come to you when they accidentally come across something, and they will. They'll come across something. You have to be available and not clueless, right? Or scary.
Yeah, I'm going to add to it a little bit around pornography because it really is a secret kind of overconsumption that youth are dibble-dabbling in this a lot. And young men are more apt to kind of fall into these places with overconsumption, and there is so much shame and stigma around saying, like, there's this something that I found fun initially that is now taking up a lot of hours each day. And it's actually adding to my depression and anxiety. Like it is more of a problem than we really pull the curtains back on and take a look at. And a concern that I think every parent really should have, if everyone has a young person that they care about in their life, is that with anything where we reach threshold. So porn, ding dong, pizza's here, whatever it might look like, that might reach threshold. That's how old I am. I'm sure it's evolved way past that. But what would reach threshold initially, where you get that reinforcing hit of dopamine, ding dong pizza time isn't going to be doing it for you a month later. So unfortunately, and the web has no, like you referred to, no end of people that are really creative in this department. The novelty that young people are looking at has to go up. The content, not just necessarily the volume, but the severity or complexity of what's happening goes up. And so that really starts to hit that addiction center in our brain, and you have someone that is taking more and more of whatever their dose was initially to get to the same level. And then you've got a brain that's different, and there needs to be looking at how do we take a step back from this drug of choice.
I feel like a piece of that is secret, right? It's not like I can sit around, we can do Instagram in the living room, but it's when it's something secret. And when you're 14 and you have a secret that's scary and it gets bigger and bigger, how do you handle the secrets?
Monitoring the use, ensuring you have those heart-to-hearts and those open conversations, asking the difficult questions. Hey, I've noticed this. Don't be naive to the fact that your kids don't have secret phones, secret Instagram accounts. They can manipulate. If you think you've got the parental controls up and they're feeling really good and secure, know that they can disable. Right? They can recreate an Apple ID. They can download software so you can't see what's going on. They can, you want to say, hey, little Bobby, and sorry if you have children named Bobby, but you can look and say, little Bobby, let's look to see how many hours on Snapchat you were, and they can do stuff, right? Like
right.
They figure it out.
Okay, so we could talk all day about it because I want to talk about gaming, but I feel like gaming is similar in the same thing. So maybe let's do a quick thing. What about the boy in the basement syndrome, as it's called, where the son will just spend all day in the basement gaming? Is that, how do you know that's fun and it's fine and he's with his friends and it's interactive, or when is it a bad idea?
One piece that you might look at is knowing that outside of your work and school, 2 to 4 hours of screen time is sufficient, right? That's a recommended daily dose, right? And so if you're taking more of a dose than that, that might be a first clue, like this is taking up too much of your time, but also how you're using your technology. So video games are really fun. And a lot of people jump on headsets and it's very social and they're doing things together. And so how you're using technology is a piece of it. And maybe a game that's more of a solo player might have more of a negative impact on someone. It could, if they're using it a lot of hours of the day. But as a parent, you kind of know, you've got that gut instinct that lets you know if something feels like it's tipping to a place where you're like, I just know this is not as healthy as it used to be. I'm not seeing someone that's giggling, not that everyone is joyful all the time, but I'm not seeing, I don't get the sense that this is a happy being in front of me. This person is choosing not to go out anymore. They're spending more of their time in the basement. You can, like, as you would know from your phone, you can order drugs to your house, you can order a pizza, you can get pretty much anything you want from a phone. You don't even have to leave your bedroom, pretty much, is what we learned through the pandemic. And so if there's problematic behavior, I think it's one of those things that you have to speak up and say you're concerned about it.
Okay, I want to get all the last section here on as many tips as we can jam into this. So I know, and I'll just say one because we talked about it earlier, parents need to lead by example, right? So me being on the phone and telling my kid to get off his phone or her phone doesn't help. So we need to lead by example. What do you find yourself telling to parents a lot as far as, here's what you should be doing, here's what I wouldn't be doing? Jump in anywhere, go.
Well, starting early, right?
Yeah.
And setting up those parameters of, like, if you want to play cribbage or another odd game that you play in your family, then so be it, right? But
I was about to say I could order pizza, but that would just be wrong. Go ahead.
now
yes.
I'm associating pizza with pornography. Thanks, Kasia. But yeah, so starting early and saying, okay, we have rules. We have no tech at the dinner table. No tech out. Even if it's there, we know that the brain is anticipatory and we're looking at the notifications or we're wondering who's saying what, and it's that dopamine addiction piece. So no tech at dinner table, no tech at nighttime in the bedrooms. Nothing good happens at 3 a.m. on FaceTime. Ever. And modeling this. So all tech in the kitchen. But starting early, setting up those parameters, being the parent, you can't always be your child's best friend, and in fact, you shouldn't be. You should be connected emotionally, but you also are the parent. So you're like, get up here, we're playing this weird game of cribbage, and you're gonna like it, damn it, right? But you gather, and you have, if you don't have family dinners where you can emotionally connect with your kids and muck around and what's going on, what's not going on, you can eyeball your kids at family dinners. If you don't have them now, maybe have them twice a week. I know people are busy, but those are non-negotiables for me, and I constantly encourage that with parents.
Yeah, and like to the family dinner piece, sometimes it's not always just looking at like being the police of the phones and making sure they're away and put them in this bucket. It's also making sure that you cut those times into your life and it's just a scheduled, we sit down together and we eat, right? We know that phone use increases overeating because we can kind of mindlessly be eating too much and watching our favorite show. So actually, it teaches healthier nutrition habits. If you have phones out of the way and you're sitting together and you're enjoying food and talking about your day. So I think that it's also really important to go back, I'm going to say back to some old-fashioned values with families that we know are really important.
Right.
No phones to and from school. The longer that you can hold out on giving your kid an iPhone, any access to Instagram, TikTok, I believe you're supposed to be 16 years old now to be on TikTok. What a load, because over half of the consumers of TikTok are under the age of 16. But like, it's okay to be that parent that says no, even though your young person will say, you are the worst parent, possibly rude language, everyone else is allowed to have this, why are you wrecking my life?
Yeah.
That it's actually, but I'm actually giving you your life. Like there doesn't have to be a whole conversation about it. I think old school wristwatches are really cool. So this is just like, it's got a minute hand and a second hand on it and stuff. But you honestly do not know the amount of times I'm like I won't bring my own family into it, but I'm at work and I'm having this really, what I think is deep conversation about something important, and I get, just hold on, this is important. And I'm like, are you kidding me? you were planning a bike ride? Like, that didn't really happen though.
No,
That's just
sure.
like an example
Right.
of what might happen. But those, when we feel hurt by someone breaking our eye contact or not by eye contact, but breaking
Yeah.
our conversation,
Yeah.
like our kids are experiencing that too. And like I can think of one time I was studying for a big exam to become a psychologist, and my littlest daughter came up to me and actually was like, "Mom, look at me." And I was like, yeah. And I'm like studying, all stressed out. And she's like, "But Mama, look at me." And she like grabbed my face and like made me look at her. Oh, it makes me so sad thinking about it. But it was a moment where it was just this perfect clarity of, oh my goodness, I'm doing that thing that I know better than to do. Like I'm actually ignoring probably one of the most important people in my life to do something that could absolutely wait till later. And so that might be a piece too with parents. I think lots of people came over from their work days, and because people are all dressed sort of fancy like. But if you have a busy job that requires lots of reading and emails and stuff like that, part of your role maybe is to do that stuff later at night. Like be there and be present for your kids so that when they're looking for, they want to debrief their day or talk about something funny that happened, or maybe show you something really redonkulous on TikTok, that you actually are present enough to actually notice those subtle cues. A little kid at age 5 that's like, "Mama, I want to look at you," does not do that when they're 15. Like it literally is a split second, you're on your phone, I'm going the other way. And we don't want to miss those split seconds.
I think of, we could talk and talk and talk. I think of Howard's story this morning, or earlier today, where things can get out of control, and it's not because anyone's a bad parent or anyone doesn't love their kids. We're doing our best. And the Lionheart Foundation is a place you can call. So if you can start it early, great. But if you're sitting here going, yeah, that's 10 years ago, I'm in this mess right now, that's what Lionheart Foundation can do. Final question for both of you. I'll start with you and end with you, Danelle. What gives you hope? It's easy for me to feel, what gives you hope?
Ooh, I just think like sitting across from young people and hearing their ideas about how they want this world to be. Like truthfully, it is incredibly inspiring how calculated and reflective young people are about what they see needing to change in our world and what they know how they want to be and show up. And so that's the piece that it's easy to kind of get bogged down by some of the negativity. We're talking about youth mental health. It is definitely like poor mental health has increased over the pandemic, so that's pretty heavy. But on the flip side of it, we all as human beings want to be better and feel hope. So I guess that would be the piece, sitting down and having conversations with people like this.
Right.
Not like this.
Ah.
Yeah.
Sorry? You know what? That's really interesting. What gives you hope?
I want to, before I even go to the hope piece, I just want to, like one tip and tool that I say to parents a lot, like Tasha got a bit emotional there, and a lot of parents want to just, if Tasha was my child, I would be like, hey, let's not, it's okay, we're fine. Or like if I was a friend, well, we are friends, but she was crying and I said, hey, Tasha, let's just think about porn, don't worry about that stuff, right? Like if I distracted or I was uncomfortable with the fact that she was emotional, then what I'm doing is I'm like not mucking around in her emotions, but if I just say, yeah, that's hard, oh wow, that happened, that sucks, that emotional connection is really good. Instead of trying to take away people's pain, and I think we do that too much as adults and parents, so just remembering that. But hope-wise, what I'm finding is a lot of I would say my 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old clients want to get off their tech. Like I'm finding that they like it, they like to get off. They're sick of the drama, they're sick of the gossip, they can't help it. Like they are addicted to it, and they like their technology, and there's lots of technology that's really good. And you can springboard like knowledge and creativity and expression. Like there are a lot of good to come of tech. And kids are starting to figure out, like, I'm sick of this, I like games, I want to be with my family, so I'm quite hopeful that there is a shift, even though I'm still very worried about the use.
Yeah.
they want to get rid of it.
Yeah, and the sick of this would be the evidence that this thing that I've been passively been taking, it's just not doing it for me like it used to.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to see more of the negative consequences.
Yeah.
And that's usually a place when anyone's kind of in a place where addiction is starting to take hold of their life, the negative consequences start to outweigh the positives. And that's where you're like, I need to get a handle on this.
So good.
I have a thing that I
Oh, yeah.
wanted to show people.
This is our final thing.
This is a thing.
Do it.
Okay, sweet. Okay, if anyone has an iPhone here, I encourage you to take it out.
What?
What? And I'm gonna show you a way that after today, I guarantee if you could give yourself a 24-hour challenge to make your phone black and white. I'm telling you so quickly, the dopamine drip will stop. There's nothing exciting about anything about it when it doesn't have color. So you go to your settings and you look for accessibility. Are you guys there? Awesome, great. And then we go to display and text size. Awesome. You're there? Okay.
Dave, you're not doing it. You're just
I-
pretending.
And then scroll down
Ding dong,
to where it
pizza.
says color filters. And if you hate this, you can always Google, how did I do that? I want my phone looking back the way that I like it. And you just flick it off. It will be a black and white phone. I can barely find icons like this. So even if I'm like, oh, I should check Facebook, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't even care about someone's organic vegetables. Like, they all look great.
Hey, wait, I'm on accessibility, then where do I go?
Accessibility, and then display and text size,
Right.
and then down to color filters. So
Okay.
here's the challenge. I did this 2 Sundays ago, so I'm 10 days clean, okay? And it's dramatically reduced my phone use because it's so boring. If you are a Wordle fan, I'm told that it's really hard to see the variation in colors. But I did this with some girlfriends 2 Sundays ago, and like 3 hours later, one of them was like, I couldn't do it.
Really? I love,
Yeah.
okay, now
So
I'm the dumb one. I'm now on display and text size. Where do I go now?
down to color filters.
Color filters, got
Yeah.
it.
Flick it off.
This is a horrible phone. Awesome. All right, look at that, now I
So
got a
there's
black
your
and white
challenge,
phone.
24 hours. See if you can do it.
How about this help? Let's thank our 2 therapists so much. Thank you very much, Tasha. Thank you, Danelle. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Woo! You can say, I went to this luncheon and I came away with the worst phone ever. So good.